All right, you all. So welcome, welcome, welcome. It's your girl, Carlika Katrina Basnight-Menendez. And let me tell you, I have an amazing guest with us on this morning. I hope you all are excited because we're going to have an amazing girlfriend chat. And you already know what it's about. Menopause. Look, clear your lungs out. And that is a good, like if you used to sing or you warming up your throat, warming up your vocals, that's a good word to go ahead and warm up your vocals. And so who am I, right? The number one black face of women in menopause. And I simply say that because I've had so many women say, you're the first black woman that I've ever heard talk of this. And I'm sure Armin heard the same thing. Like, they're like, we don't exist. We're not talking about this. And it's like, we are talking about this, right? It may not be in the numbers that could be better, but there are people talking about it. And so look, let's get a few things right out the way because I want you all to meet our guest on this morning. And so September 16th to 17th, go ahead and mark your calendars. Do you understand me? Mark your calendars for MenoCon 2022 happening right here in St. Mary's, Georgia. Yes, little old St. Mary's, Georgia, right on the coast. So if you've never been here, just like I was lost, I was like, where are we going again? Where's this place at? Right? But it's right on the borderline of Georgia, the Georgia-Florida line. And so we just want to invite you, mark your calendars. Tickets will be going on sale next month, you all, which is tomorrow. Can you believe it? It is March 1st on tomorrow. We are already into third quarter. So I hope you all are crushing it and doing whatever it is that God has called you to do. So many of you all know I was literally thrown into menopause. So I don't know much about perimenopause because that's not my journey, right? I was thrown into menopause at the age of 30. And you may be saying, oh my God, that's young. Well, I've met women younger than me. I've met women who wanted children and they couldn't have them. And I've met some who are like, look, I knew I didn't want any children, but they're in their 20s. They're in their 30s, just like I was as well. And so we're talking about all things menopause. It's not just the 34 plus symptoms. It's so much more than that. And our guest on today, look, she is thriving. You all go check her out on social media, on Instagram, right? Always really dope content, really dope pictures, and just an amazing woman that I've met virtually, right? This just on this virtual space. And so this is the space that we're in. So if you're not utilizing that, shame on you. So Ami, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate the invitation. For those folk who are zooming in to our conversation, my name is Omisade Burney-Scott. I am the founder and curator of the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause. I'm a 7th generation North Carolinian, though I also lived about 11 years in Maryland growing up. And the vast majority of my work since I was about 26, 27 years old, and I'll be 55 in April, has been social justice work. So that's looked like racial justice, gender justice, economic justice, and then for the past 15 years, off and on, reproductive justice. So everything I do is through a lens or a framework around justice and liberation, and particularly for Black folk, right? So I actually took a break from social justice work at the end of 2018. And while I was on sabbatical in 2019, I decided that I wanted to have conversations with Black women who were my age or older about getting older, about menopause, about grief, about rage, about pleasure, about just a lot of different topics. And out of that, the Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause was born, which is actually a multimedia project. So we have a podcast, and we're going into season 4. We host intergenerational events, and I'm so grateful we were able to do these events in person. You know how this is, Carlika. It really makes a difference when people can feel each other's energy. And I recognize that we can still do this online, but I'm so grateful that we were able to first do those conversations in person. So we did 4 conversations in person in 2019. The first one we did was in DC, which was dope. And that was really, really cool. And we were also able to do one in Kenya at the end of the year. So when we moved into 2020, we were about to literally do a conversation in Brooklyn, and the week after everything shut down. So wow. we pivoted and brought our conversations online. We did 2 in 2020, 1 in 2021. And we also have a publication. It's a zine. It's called Messages from the Menopausal Multiverse. And we published that first one in 2020 and the second one in 2021. And so we also have done some policy work. So because of my reproductive justice, social justice brain, I knew that these conversations, the storytelling, the space that we create for folk to tell their story, like you've told your story, I've told my story. There are other people who want to tell their story. We also need to advocate for better care.
Yes.
And we also need to advocate for better policy. So last year we had an opportunity to participate with the Black Reproductive Justice group in our own voice. And then we put together a policy agenda with 40 Black women, RJ-led organizations. And I got to help co-write the section that was on menopause and aging with the Black Women's Health Imperative. So it's just been a real wild ride and journey for me personally, and also in this space. And I had posted this thing that I tagged you in yesterday, because I feel like there are a lot of people who assume that Black women aren't talking about this. And I was like, don't say that. That's not true. Don't say that. We are talking about it. We are talking about it from our own personal story, but we're also making space for other Black women, women identified, gender expansive people. Listen, folk have a story to tell. They have a right to tell their story. They're the expert of their story. You're the expert of your story. I'm the expert of my story. So we need these spaces. It's really important. So I really appreciate all of the ways that you continue to mine the field and bring people together. It's critical work. I really respect that.
Thank you. And same here, because I don't think a lot of times people look at healthcare injustices, right? I think that's something that a lot of people have experienced, and almost like the microaggressions, right? That if you're really not paying attention, it'll just go right over you. But then once you go back, it's like when I first saw a picture on Instagram of the embryo and pregnancy drawn and figured with color, Black.
Right. So beautiful, so amazing. I was just like, wait, is this the first time that's been the case? And it's so viral, and God bless this young man who did that work, right?
Yes.
We never see ourselves, or we rarely see ourselves represented in the medical industrial complex. And I don't know what your experience was in your menopausal journey, that when you arrived at that place at 30, how you were treated, but I hope you were treated with respect and care. But I know that a lot of people we've talked to have not been. There was a young person that we interviewed for our podcast who unfortunately recently lost her journey with cervical cancer. And she shared on the podcast last year what it was like to be diagnosed with cervical cancer in her early 30s. I think Chaz was 31 when she got diagnosed. And then to have a hysterectomy. And the oncologist was explaining everything that was going on around their cancer, but didn't say anything to them about, oh, and by the way, you're gonna experience menopause as a result of this procedure that hopefully will extend your life. Right. And it wasn't, then when they started having hot flashes and everything else, they were like, is this
what normal? Is this?
Like, oh yeah. Oh, you didn't mention that? They were like, no, you did not actually.
Right. I agree. And I can totally relate to that. But even thinking of reproductive justice, right? I don't think people look at it as there are rights and there are more things that need to be in place, whether that's in your workplace, whether that's with the health insurance companies. It's so many other things. And I'm glad you said it. That's why I say menopause is not just those 34 symptoms. First of all, everyone may not have them. Someone may have all of them, right? And so, like you said, I think back over my journey, and I was in pain for years. I was seeing on Instagram where a young lady ended up passing away. And I was reading her story, and I was just like, wow, that could have been me, because I was going from doctor to doctor with no answer.
What's going on? Right. Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, oh, it's in your head. Oh. Is it? Then it went from, oh, well, without saying it, but pretty much saying it, you're a drug seeker, right? When I'm bringing you all these pills because I'm saying this medication is making me sicker, and I'm still in pain, you don't see me.
It is not, I'm not feeling better. I am not feeling better. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. So that whole journey leading up to finally, oh, well, you can either be in pain or you can have a hysterectomy. Oh, well, I've already been in pain for X amount of years, so let me go ahead and get a hysterectomy. All right, so here goes some pamphlets. Oh, this is going to throw you into menopause. Oh, okay. Exactly. Crickets. Like, so once I left the hospital and things started happening, who did I have to turn to? No one. Who did I have for support? No one. So I'm out here all alone trying to figure out, okay, what's going on here?
What is happening to me? And you deserve so much better care. Like we all do. I think so much of our journeys, one, as Black folk, as a collective, we all have our own journey, but we know that as a collective, our bodies have not always been respected or not always seen as human. Right. So the way that we experience pain is often questioned or disregarded or dismissed, right? Yeah. We know that's dangerous because it's been dangerous for Black women when we are trying to figure out what's going on with us that might relate to us having breast cancer or cervical cancer or uterine cancer, or when we're giving birth, right? And the maternal mortality rates of Black women is 7 to 8 times larger than white women. And we don't even have to be socioeconomically equal. We could be somebody who's working in the world with a PhD, and we're still 7 to 8 times more likely to die either during childbirth or postpartum. And in some places, right, New York is.
I love that you said that, simply because a lot of times people automatically just group, oh, okay, well, if you're, have this socioeconomic status, then this is why you're treated this way. Like you said, people with degrees and everything. I didn't go in the hospital, quote unquote, what people's definition of as ghetto or this, that, and the third. I went in, of course, just being me as a patient, right? I don't go in there telling your credentials and all of this stuff. I'm just a patient.
You shouldn't have to. That's the biggest part as people are listening to this conversation. I don't care if you're the dog catcher.
Hello.
Everyone should be afforded respect. Everyone should be seen fully as a person. Everyone should be believed. And we know that why this doesn't happen, Carlika, is because of white supremacy and patriarchy and misogyny that will have someone look at you and say, oh, look at here, Black woman. It could not possibly be that bad, And we also, unfortunately, because we've experienced it so much in this culture and society, we sometimes internalize that, which will have us do a couple things. Believe that, well, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe I should just grin and bear it, or I should just shoulder it. We'll shoulder it, right? We Black women, we're really good at shouldering stuff. We'd be like, girl, I'm tired, but we gotta press through. Fake it till you make it.
Yes.
Get yourself together. And that's a part of our conditioning, right? And sometimes you may find a provider who looks like us, and everybody who's skin folk ain't kinfolk. So they may look at you and be like, I don't believe you either. But because part of the culture is to press into our psyche that we are not meant to be believed, that we are not meant to be cared for, that we're not fully human, that we don't have the right to be happy and safe and thriving. And so conversations like this, the work you're doing, work I'm doing, work a bunch of other sisters are doing, we're not here for any of that nonsense.
Hello.
And we're cutting through it.
And you're right. We're cutting through it. We're really cutting down on the BS on every single level, like real talk, because lives are being lost for no reason.
Absolutely. It's unnecessary. It's really unnecessary. There's so much opportunity for someone to say, you know what, let me spend a little bit more time talking to you about what's going on here.
Yeah.
Before you go, let's do this quick test.
Yeah.
That takes so little time. I had a beautiful sister named Paris, who also was on the show with Chaz, who had ovarian insufficiency, sometimes known as ovarian failure, for 10 years, for a whole decade, until they got connected with a reproductive endocrinologist who was like, I know exactly what's going on. You've got this, and we can help you.
Wow.
And she was like, my whole life changed after a decade. All of her 20s was just awful with her period. Awful.
You know what, Omi? That's how I feel. Like, I felt like those years were just awful. And here's birth control. Try this. Try that. And I'm just like, and you're right. When I was just looking, my son and I were watching 42. And so he heard one of the commentators say, oh, he's superhuman and he can run fast because of his bone in his ankle is longer. So my son is 11. And he was like, what? Right. He was like, I said, well, Joseph, that's how they view us at times, that we're superhuman, that we can just endure. And I love what you said, that we've been trained to have that mindset as well, where we're like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that. I'm going to keep going. And sometimes we keep going. I often say, love yourself to health and not to death. Right.
Yes, exactly. And thank you. I'm so glad your baby has you as his mama to be like, listen, beloved, this is not true. It's important that you hear this though.
Yes.
It's important that you hear this and you understand this. Like, it's our children get to be the beneficiaries of what we didn't know and what our parents didn't know, what our grandparents didn't know. Like, each generation has access to more information, right? That reminds us of how beautiful and powerful we are. Yes. I'm that he has you as his mommy to be like, yeah, listen, that's exactly what they said. They sometimes say it now.
They do. Things are so much the same. We've had some changes, but so many things are the same. It's just you know how they say the devil just dress up different. Right? You just dress it up different. You come at it at a different angle through all kind of propaganda and all kind of things, but you come in at a different angle. And so I'm glad that Black women and women around the world, we're just speaking up and using our voices, and like, we're not going to be muted. We're not going to be silenced. And especially with our healthcare, right? We have a part to play. Yes, we got some work to do on ourselves, and we have a part to play. But even with that part to play, when we step into the doctor's office, or whether that's a virtual call or anything, like you said, we shouldn't have to feel like we have to lead with certain things. We shouldn't have to feel like maybe I shouldn't go. And it's not just right, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I just won't go, or whatever the case may be. And it's like, no, because you matter, right? And so I love the work that you're doing, because we don't hear a lot of people saying, you know what, reproductive, because I have so many things wrote down in my journal, and I'm just like, yeah, why isn't this not covered by healthcare, right? Pregnancy is covered, this is covered. So why should people have to not be able to get proper treatment plans because of money?
Yeah, well, the training that doctors receive, medical training, is like less than 30% of doctors receive any kind of substantive training around menopause, right? And then once that's training, we're not talking about their actual practice, right? So like the training they receive in medical school is like really palsy. And then once they are actually in their medical practice, even as people who might be OBGYNs, like less than 2% will say, I have a practice that's dedicated to menopause care, menopause education, menopause research, things like that. My journey with menopause began when I was like, in my late 30s. My cycle was pretty steady most of my life. And then I started noticing fluctuations in my late 30s. And so I would sometimes take a break from taking the pill, because I was thinking, I need to give my body a break from these hormones that are synthetic. So I would do that. And I noticed that when I used to do a break, my cycle was still really steady. And then I noticed it was doing something like this in my late 30s. And then I got pregnant when I was 40. And I had a miscarriage. And I remember when I found out I was pregnant, we were getting ready to go in for our first appointment, but I had a business trip to New Orleans, and I started to spot. And when I got back, my husband and I went in to the doctor, and it was my regular doctor, who's amazing, Black woman, OBGYN. She was not in, and it was an emergency because I was spotting, so I had to see one of her colleagues, who was an older brother, and his bedside manner left a lot to be desired. And he said, "Yeah, you're miscarrying." Now, I already at this point had a child. My oldest child, Che, was 15 at that age, at that point. And he was like, just gonna let nature take its course. And I was like, I've never had a miscarriage before, so I don't know what letting nature take its course is gonna look like. And he was just like, just go home. You'll have some discomfort maybe. And then if everything doesn't pass, we'll do a DNC. And I was like, it was like all of these, it was like, in this moment, like all this information is just floating around my head. And I'm looking at my ex-husband like, I don't know what he's saying. And he's looking at me like, I guess we should go home. Like I was in there for like maybe 20, 30 minutes. And then I got sent home. I called my godmother crying. And she was like, listen, call your god sister. Because one of my god sisters had several miscarriages.
Wow.
She has 2 children, but she had like 5, 6 miscarriages.
Wow.
And so I called Ibiemi. I'm so grateful for her because she was like my doula. She was like, sis, what did the doctor say? And I told her, she was like, okay.
Wow.
Listen. And she helped me to think about preparing my body for what would happen. And it did happen that evening. And that she was like, and it's not going to be, you're not going to have discomfort. You might have some pain, honey. It'll be like the cramping you experience when you're in labor. I was like, ooh, that's not what he said at all. And so, not at all. And she said, and you need to call your doctor back. And I was like, you're right. So I called back, and my doctor called me immediately. And she was like, come back in the morning. I said, okay. So, I'm actually, my timeline is screwed up because after I saw her that morning, that night, I had the miscarriage. But when I went back in that morning, she was so gentle with me, Carlika. She was like, tell me what's happening. And I told her, I said, I just, I keep spotting. I feel like something's wrong. And she was like, okay, well, let's check it out. She's like, you're perimenopausal. And I was like, hard top, what is that?
Right.
Right. And she was like, menopause is a spectrum.
Wow.
I was like, I thought it was just like, it's menopause and then you're done. She was like, no, it's actually a spectrum. There's perimenopause, menopause, once you hit that 366th day, no cycle, and then you're postmenopausal. I was like, who knew this? Wow. Right. And so she's like, we could talk more about that later. We want to focus on you. And then she confirmed, she's like, you are miscarrying. She's like, I want you to do, she gave me more instructions. She was just so good to me, and then I found myself pregnant again at 41, and I had my youngest son, Taj. He'll be 14 in October. And she was vigilant. She was vigilant with me. She was like, and that's when I learned about advanced maternal age, another term I had never heard of before. I was like, what is that? She was like, yes. So there was
those to me are like the best providers who take the time to explain. Instead of just throwing all this information at you, right? And they just throw it at you, and then it's like, okay, here your papers, go to the front. Do you need another appointment?
Somebody handed you a pamphlet, and you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? You need to talk to me. So I'm grateful for Avis Artist. She's retired now, for introducing that language to me, for taking time with me. Yes. And being so gentle. Like her manner was always to give me information and she would sit back.
Wow, I love it.
And I would be like, do you have more questions? I was like, give me a second. She said, okay, take your time. She would sit back. I was like, I love this sister so much.
Like, I love this.
Yeah, right. Because I didn't feel like I had to rush, or if I couldn't figure out what a question was, I said, do you mind if I take some time to process this, and can I call you back? She said, of course you can. You always can call me. You can always call me. She was there with us when we had the baby. Her shift ended, and her other colleague was supposed to come on. She said, I already called Dr. Avery and told her she can come a couple hours later. We gonna deliver this baby today. I said, yes, ma'am, we are. Yes, ma'am, we are. A little
But
fat.
it's those relationships, it's those moments and those times that gives us hope, right? That there are some out here that genuinely care, and we're not just a co-payment.
That's right. That's right. Carlika, it's really important for us to have a critique, to have a clear, grounded critique of medical practices, healthcare providers, health insurance. It's important to have a critique because the institution and the systems do need to improve. They don't serve everybody the fullest as they should. And there are providers inside of those systems and institutions who do good work.
Yes.
And it's important. And we also know that it's hard sometimes to connect with that because your insurance might not cover a certain provider if they're outside a network, or if you're underinsured or uninsured. Your ability to have access to someone who's going to see you as a full person, it gets diminished. But that doesn't mean you don't have a right to that. You do. And if you have the ability, like if you're encountering a lot of static with your healthcare provider, and you have the ability to leave, vote with your feet and be like, you know what? May you have the day you deserve, and keep it going.
Keep it. I love that. And I love that you even said even with the uninsured, because I'm just thinking back. Typically, when you see neighborhood clinics and all of these things, right? The way that the culture of the clinics, the culture of WIC offices, the culture of social service, the culture of it and different things. I remember when I had to be on food stamps, right? And going in, I didn't go in with bonnets and bedroom shoes and all of these different things. I went in dressed like I was coming from work or something or whatever. And I remember the first social worker. And I'm just looking at her and I'm just like, but then this is when we have the right to speak up, right? We don't have to tolerate certain things. So I sat there boldly and courageously. And I was just like, okay, so I know you all see a lot of people, but everyone's situation is different, and you are not here to judge people. I was like, so you're not going to sit here and make me feel bad or demean my character or different things just solely by the way that I look. I said, I'm in here for help, and you're only the one, you're here to assist me and getting the help that I need at this time. I said, so therefore, the next time I come in here and from this conversation on out, don't ever. And from that day forward, but if I didn't speak up for myself.
Sure. I mean, the system is working exactly the way it was created.
Let me tell you, Omi, I'm listening to Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil.
Yeah. The system is working exactly the way it was constructed. Exactly the way it continues to be reinforced. And so inside those systems, you will find amazing people who are also under the pressure of that system, right? Yeah. So the system is not supposed to see you or I or any other person as full people. And the system does not reward the folk who are the workers inside the system for doing that either. You don't get accolades for seeing somebody as a full person and supporting them. And so because women's bodies, Black women's bodies in this country have been used, right? Our enslaved ancestors, we were used basically as chattel to reproduce a workforce.
Right, because we had what they used to say, those bearing hips and stuff, right?
And the violence that happened to us as enslaved people, not only the forced reproduction that we were made to do to create a workforce, but also, J. Marion Sims, who's considered the father of gynecology, did experiments on enslaved Black women. They couldn't give consent, and he also didn't use anesthesia. So there are so many atrocities that we experience as Black women as we move forward into where we are now in the mid-20th, which is wild. Like, the fact that we're in 2022 just feels like a really crazy moment to be in, we will often still encounter people who will look at Black women's bodies or Black people's bodies and be like, I don't really care about what's happening to this person. And so a lot of people who feel confusion around menopause, fear around menopause, right? All the taboos and the stigma that go along with menopause and or aging. And like you said, really, really smartly, menopause and aging don't always go hand in hand. There are a lot of different ways that people can like enter into their menopause journey, but we do know that aging is also a situation.
A whole situation. It is.
And, you know, I know that the way that I appear or the way that I show up in the workplace as somebody who's moving into my mid 50s, you know, I'll be 60 in 5 years. So like, what does that look like and how am I perceived in my value? How am I perceived in terms of what I offer in my work or my creativity? What am I supposed to be able to experience in terms of my care or pleasure or relationships? Like there are all these assumptions because our society centers white, young, thin women.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree. And so what you're doing, is there a way that people can review even the reproductive policies and different things? Because I'm definitely interested.
Absolutely. There's a link in my my Instagram bio is at Black Girls Guide to Menopause. And if you go into the link tree, you scroll down, you'll see something that says Black RJ and Black RJ policy agenda. And when you click on that, a PDF will pop up and it'll walk you through all of the different recommendations that we made to the new administration, to President Biden and Vice President Harris. As they were coming into office, we were like, here's some things that you need to take into consideration as you all are going to be doing any kind of work around women's health, Black women's health, reproductive justice, protecting our reproductive rights. But we have the bodily autonomy to decide what we do with our bodies and when we do it. So there's a lot of really good information in there. And I can also send you the link directly so that if you want to be able to share it, I will
definitely, because I do believe that this is the avenue that we're headed even the more.
Sure.
Where it's wonderful for women to share their experiences, and that's what helps get policies and things in place. But it is that point of saying, you know what, some people are like, where do I start? Where do I go? Like, it's so many things that need to be just brought to the forefront and spoken up on. And so, yes, please send me the link, because that's information that needs to be out in everyone's hands so that we can see change. And then we know exactly how do we need to be advocating, right? For ourselves, for other people who say, look, I really can't advocate for myself, but you can share this link. You can share this with someone. You can get the information in someone's hand. And then even in our own cities and states where we are, look, pass it on to them so they can make some changes, whether it's in the workplace, your communities. It's work to do.
There's work to do, but we need more hands on the freedom plow. So come on in, right? Come on in, because that is our prayer, definitely, for all of us to be treated, just treated equally and fair when it comes to our health care. Yeah, exactly.
All over. So look, Omi, let everyone know what you have going on. Because look, I appreciate your time and everything, but I want to respect your time. I know you are a busy woman and different things, but let everyone know how they can connect with you, your guide and different things, how they can purchase that as well.
Okay. So you can learn more about the Black Girls Guide to Surviving Menopause by going to our website. So it's www.blackgirlsguidetosurvivingmenopause.com. When you go to the website, there are links that'll take you directly to the podcast, so you can listen to the first 3 seasons at your leisure. You can also listen to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. So we're on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Belcher, everything like that. On the website is also a link to the zine. So if you want to check the zine out, you can also purchase the zine on AK Press if you would like to. It's up to you. We're going to be launching season 4 of the podcast towards the end of March, but we're going to kick off a series of IG Live conversations starting in a couple of weeks, and we're really excited. We're going to be talking to millennials. We're going to be talking to doctors. We're going to be talking to storytellers and culture workers. to give us, again, a more robust look at this topic that you and I are really clear is super dynamic. It's right? It's really dynamic. So I'm really grateful that you and I got to connect and see each other face to face. I really respect the work you're doing, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you. Look, I could just sit and listen all day because we're always students as well. And so just knowing that people are out here taking it from the 34 plus symptoms and saying, let's make some changes in our legislation. Let's make some changes in the healthcare policies, workplace policies, all of those things. That is amazing. And so that's the avenue that I definitely see myself venturing off. That's what a lot of times I'm researching. Even now, and I'm just like, okay, but this needs to change and that needs to change. And I'm like, but you're right. We're all in this together. And so look, you all, like Omi said, we're out here and we're talking about menopause, but make sure you all connect with her on Instagram. You don't want to miss those lives. She gives amazing content and different things, always amazing pictures. Look, always looking amazing and doing what she's been, called to do, right? Justice. So we're speaking up for justice in our healthcare for specifically Black women and even Black men, right? Because they may not be speaking up right now, some, but I'm sure they're going through some of the same things. And we want our Black men to rise to the occasion to even consider going more to the doctor and getting themselves checked out. So one thing I want you all to take from this conversation is that we're not here to put a muzzle on things that are happening, right? And we're speaking out about them and changes are being made, but we need your help as well. There's not enough research. There's not enough funding, all of these different things that need to take place so that we can have better health care and give those options. I'm big on options because I felt like all my options were snatched away from me.
And that was a truthful thing. And look what you've done with your personal journey. I think that so many people will take their experience, or if you will, take their testimony and activate that into something that can help people not have to go through the same thing that they went through, or if they did, really validate it so it resonates and it provides healing. And so this is healing work. It's really important.
It is. So you all look. Once again, Black Girl's Guide to Menopause. Make sure you check out Instagram, go to the website, get all the goods, listen to the podcast, all of those things, because I'm telling you, even if you're not a menopausal woman, the more educated and empowered you are before you get there, trust me when I say it's going to help you out. You have a guide, you have some expectations, and more importantly, you have community, right? You have people that you can DM, you have people that you can send an email, you have people that you can get in their programs, whatever that looks like for you. You have options. That's what I want you to understand. You have options. And if you need a second opinion, third opinion, or whatever the case may be, you do that and be your biggest advocate for yourself. The first two letters in menopause is me. So Omi and I were talking earlier, we taking care of us, right? We're taking care of us so that we can serve and support those who need our support the most. And so, Omi, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your yes. Yeah, so you all, until the next time, remember, when you change your perspective, you change your life. We'll talk to you soon. I am Carlika Katrina Basnight-Menendez. Yes, all of that from C to Z. So if you want to connect with me, that's my rap name, y'all, CZ, okay? But if you want to connect with me, just connect. I'm across all social media platforms. It's Carlika Basnight-Menendez. So until the next time, you all be blessed.